The Alphabet Murders, 1971 to 1973, USA. Rochester, New York, a mid-sized city along the southern shore of Lake Ontario. In the early 1970s, it was the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked, where children walked to school alone, where parents didn't yet know they needed to be afraid. That comfort was about to be shattered, not once, not twice, but 3 times. And each time, the killer left behind a pattern so deliberate, so chilling, it seemed almost like a taunt. 3 little girls, 3 different years. Each one found in a county that matched her own last name, all of them sexually assaulted, all of them strangled. The press would eventually call it the Alphabet Murders. The police would call it their greatest failure. And the families would call it something they still can't find words for. This is the story of Carmen, Wanda, and Michelle, and the shadow that followed Rochester for decades. November 16, 1971. 10-year-old Carmen Colon left her grandmother's house in Rochester in the early afternoon. She had been asked to pick up a prescription from a nearby drugstore, a short, familiar errand for a girl who knew her neighborhood well. She never came home. What happened next was witnessed by at least 3 motorists traveling along Interstate 490 near the town of Churchville. They saw a young girl, a child, running along the highway shoulder, half-dressed, screaming, waving her arms at passing cars. None of them stopped. Each one drove past, telling themselves someone else would help, that perhaps it wasn't what it looked like, that maybe she was just playing. By the time any of them second-guessed that decision, it was too late. Carmen's body was found the following day, November 17th, in a ravine near Churchville, in Chile, Monroe County. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled. She was 10 years old, and the county where her body was found, Chile, began with the letter C, the same letter as her last name, Colon. At the time, investigators noted the detail but didn't yet understand what it meant. It would take 2 more deaths for the full picture to emerge. The city grieved. The investigation began. Detectives canvassed Carmen's neighborhood, interviewed her family, tracked down the witnesses who had seen a child crying for help on the highway and kept driving. Those witnesses, haunted and ashamed, gave descriptions of a vehicle, a car, possibly a light-colored sedan, and a man. The description was vague. The leads went cold. Winter came to Rochester, and Carmen Colon's case settled into the files. Then, almost exactly a year later, it happened again. April 2, 1973. Wanda Walkowicz, 11 years old, stepped out of her family's home in Rochester to walk to a nearby store. She was going to buy groceries, another ordinary errand, another short walk through a neighborhood that had no reason yet to feel dangerous on a Sunday afternoon. She didn't come back either. Her body was found the next day, April 3rd, along the side of Route 104 in the town of Webster, Wayne County. She had been sexually assaulted and strangled, just like Carmen. And then investigators saw the name. Walkowicz, Wayne County, W and W the same first letter. A mirror of what had happened to Carmen Colon in Chile County. The pattern was now impossible to ignore, and the city of Rochester began to panic. Detectives went back through Carmen's file with fresh eyes. They looked at the geography, the method, the victims, young girls, brown-haired, working-class neighborhoods, sent on short errands they should have been able to complete safely. The killer was choosing them with purpose. He was leaving them with purpose. He knew exactly what he was doing, and he wanted someone to notice. Months passed. Police worked furiously, quietly. They kept parts of the investigation from the press to avoid triggering copycat behavior and to preserve details only the real killer would know. Parents across Rochester began walking their children everywhere. Schools sent letters home. The city watched its streets with a new, exhausting suspicion. But nothing stopped what came next. November 26, 1973. Michelle Maenza, 11 years old, disappeared after being seen getting into a car in Rochester. She had been having a difficult time, described by those who knew her as a quiet girl, sometimes lonely. A witness saw her accept a ride from a stranger. Another ordinary moment turned into the last moment anyone saw her alive. Her body was discovered on November 27th near the town of Macedon in Wayne County. Yes, but the location sat near the border with Ontario County. More specifically, her body was found near Macedon, and investigators locked onto what mattered most: Maenza, Macedon, M&M, 3 girls. 3 years, 3 matching initials between victim and dump site. The pattern was complete and it was undeniable. The media named it officially the Alphabet Murders. Some called it the double initial murders, which was more precise, less theatrical, but no less horrifying. The FBI was brought in. The investigation expanded dramatically. Investigators developed a profile of the likely offender: a local white male, likely with a vehicle, possibly known to children in these neighborhoods, someone who could approach a child without triggering immediate alarm. One name surfaced: a local man with a history of concerning behavior around children. He was questioned. He remained a person of interest for years. But there was not enough evidence to charge him, and in 1994, he died by suicide, leaving behind a note that investigators interpreted as ambiguous at best and, to some, confessional. The case was never officially closed. No one was ever charged. What makes the Alphabet Murders so deeply disturbing is not just the violence, though that is shattering enough, but the architecture of it. This was not chaos. This was not impulse. Whoever killed Carmen, Wanda, and Michelle built something. He constructed a system, a signature, and then he walked away from it. He watched the city turn itself inside out looking for him. He may have watched the news coverage. He may have read the newspaper articles in which the police begged the public for help. And then he stopped, or moved on, or disappeared into whatever ordinary life he led when he wasn't doing unspeakable things to children. Carmen Colon was 10. She ran toward traffic on a highway and screamed for help and was ignored by every person who passed her. Wanda Walkowicz was 11. She went to buy groceries on a Sunday and never came home. Michelle Maenza was 11. She got into a car and was never seen alive again. 3 girls, 3 families permanently broken. One pattern that screams premeditation, 0 convictions. Somewhere in the city of Rochester, or somewhere far from it by now, the man who did this may have lived out the rest of his life quietly. He may have had grandchildren. He may have gone to church. He may have read about cold cases in his old age and felt something or felt nothing at all. The case remains open. The files exist. The DNA evidence collected from the scenes has been tested and retested as technology has improved, and somewhere, buried in the details that investigators have never released to the public, there may still be a thread that leads somewhere. But for Carmen, Wanda, and Michelle, 3 little girls who only wanted to run their errands and come home for dinner, justice, for now, is still waiting at the end of a road that hasn't been found.